Greetings, Phil again. This is one of the series of tips that I'm producing regarding water features and ponds. I have done two recently, one about growing plants such as beautiful water lilies and marginal plants and oxygen weed in gardens. I'm filming this particular one in the middle of the day, which is quite fortunate because you can see this beautiful water lily gonorrhea in full flower. They do close in the evening, and so quite often when I film early in the day, we don't actually get to see them. Now, one of the reasons for having a water feature is that we like to be able to look into the limpid depths and see the fish and also the sort of the mystery that we see in water. There can be a problem with this with alga that naturally grows there. So if you fill a pond with water, it will look crystal clear. It won't stay like that. And the reason is because alga will find its way in. It can just float in the air, or it can be brought in by water birds or plants that you might bring in. It will automatically be there. And even if there are no nutrients in that water, the alga will grow and it will actually fix its own nutrients from the air and from the water. So automatically nutrients and organic matter will build up. And as a result, we can get that unpleasant pea soup effect, which is plankton-like microscopic alga growing in the water. Also, we can get other forms such as blanket weed, which is long streamers of filamentous alga, or a scum that grows over the surface. The object of this video is explaining how you can avoid having this take over. Let's get into it. Now, there are some chemical options. So there are chemicals that can keep water clear. I'm not a fan of these, partly because I try to avoid use of chemicals, but also partly because I like to have a pond where we can see the fish and the plants. If you have chemicals in the water, you're unlikely to get that. There's also dyes that can help to reduce the effect of alga, and again, I prefer not to use that. They do have to be renewed over time. Another method for preventing algal growth is using filters. You can actually purchase or home make yourself a biological filter, which is normally a device through which you pump water. There will be gravel inside. Bacteria naturally grow on the gravel, and those bacteria will consume the alga as it is passed through the filter. The water will be clean coming out the other end, free from the alga and also the nutrients that they've absorbed. You'd have to clean out those ones periodically by back flushing or some other cleaning method. Another method, which is a more natural one, is to have a bog type filter. I don't have this here, but in my previous garden I had a more naturalistic pond. I had a waterfall going into it. So the waterfall flowed in two stages. The first stage cascaded down into a bog pond, and in that pond you can have water pickerel or water irises. I had native plants in there. I planted them into gravel. It was actually quite a shallow pool. Bacteria would automatically migrate into the gravel and they would filter out the alga from the water. So there was a certain proportion of pond that you are supposed to have in relation to the size of the main pond, normally recommended to be about 20%, but I don't think that you have to be pedantic, and also a suggested water rate. But again, you don't have to be too precise about this. So in my case, the water was taken out of the pond and then passed over the waterfall and through the bog pool, and that removed again the alga and also the nutrients from the water through the bacteria in the stones and also in the plants themselves. And periodically I would clean it out simply by thinning the bog plants. So I would remove some of the bog plants, shake off the gravel so it could be returned, and then I would use the bog plants as compost in my garden, and I would of course replant some of the bog plants and the process would continue. And that was a very successful system. After the water left the bog, it would then flow naturally over a second cascade into the pond, and the process would keep the water clear. I don't have such a system in this one. This is a more formal style of pond. So the methods I use are by having a natural balance in my pond. Firstly, I do have oxygen weed growing in the pond. Eelgrass is the one that I actually have in this pool. Now, that takes up the same nutrients that the alga will, and so therefore it's competing with the alga for the food, and that is very beneficial. Occasionally I thin that out. Again, I take some of the oxygen weed away and I spread it on my garden as manure, I'm removing the nutrients that the alga would use. Secondly, the emergent plants. So I've got plants that are growing on the bottom of the pond and then emerging up through the top. I have some giant rushes, and again, they take up nutrients from the water and make it unavailable for the alga. I also have to thin that one out periodically. So the nutrients that have been collected in those plants are stored in them. The plants just will keep growing over the surface of the pond. Occasionally I have to get in and actually thin them out and remove them away, and again I compost that material. The third type is the water lilies, such as that beautiful Gonair and the James Bryden and the Florida Sunset and several others that I have. I do actually have a miniature water lily growing in here. It's not a true water lily, it's a nymphoides. It just floats on the surface. Any of those water lilies will actually shade the water, and in shading it they're actually removing the photosynthetic ability of the alga. So the light isn't getting down to the water, it's being captured by those water lilies and is unavailable to the alga. Also, of course, those plants are sucking up nutrients, again making it unavailable for the alga. And again, periodically I do remove some of the water lilies and either give them away or use them as compost. As you're probably aware, I do have fish growing in my pond. There are fish down here right now. Fish are a bit of a two-edged sword. They will happily eat some of the alga, and that is good. However, at the same time, of course, they excrete or poo into the water, and that is a nutrient-rich material which will feed the alga. It also feeds the water plants. So when it feeds the plants and I remove those plants from the water, I am actually again removing the nutrients. So overall, if you look at it, with the oxygen weed and the emergent plants, the water lilies and the fish, all together they are creating a balanced ecosystem which, even though I do have the alga present, it never actually becomes a problem. It's always clear. I have to say that any garden pond will never be crystal clear. However, because I have the black sides and bottom, it means that you can't actually see the sludge that is growing there, and you just see the mysterious depths. Apart from removing the various plants from the pond, thinning them out periodically, I also remove any other organic matter that ends up there. So sometimes leaves from neighbouring plants will blow into the pond. I remove them with a net, and again I spread that on my garden. So in various ways the pond is actually a form of actually creating useful organic matter which I can return to my vegetable garden or other gardens and actually improve the fertility of those while maintaining this in a nice, clear, attractive form. Now I am filming this on an extremely hot day, so I am getting very, very hot, so I'm going to finish this video. Just a reminder to like this video and also subscribe if you haven't done so, and share it with others, because that is what helps my channel to grow. And of course, as always, thank you very much for watching this video through to the end.